These people were mistakenly marked as having provided documentary proof of citizenship. And Arizona voter registration database now has correctly flagged the impacted individuals.
Let's have a look at a few stories that might help us to understand the small margins in the forthcoming election and the motivations when it comes to a subject like migration and the issue of voter ID. The idea is that it's racist to ask for voter ID. It was Joe Rogan himself who said that is a racist assertion, and I kind of agree with that. Why would you assume that certain races or cultural groups would be unable to attain identification? It's an interesting assumption. We'll start off with the story that 218,000 voters in Arizona have been wrongly marked as having proof of citizenship because Arizona is a state where voter ID is required. And then we'll look at Elon Musk's response to California banning voter ID requirements before looking at the FBI's relationship with elections in your country and indeed whether or not we can trust them. Let's start off looking at these the 218,000 voters in Arizona that have been wrongly categorized.
Now, this new data set, as they're calling it, brings the total number of people impacted to 218,000 instead of the 98,000 we first reported. These people were mistakenly marked as having provided documentary proof of citizenship. And Arizona voter registration database now has correctly flagged the impacted individuals. Election officials say they will contact the affected Arizonans with information regarding their status after the general election. That means for now, the Arizona Supreme Court's ruling is going to stay that impacted voters, that includes all of them, will still be able to vote.
I suppose the reason that is so significant is because Arizona is one of the contested states that will likely determine the outcome of the election overall, i.e. a swing state. Now, to a degree, I've been participating in these the campaign through my relationship with Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, and I'd love to talk to you about some of the things that have taken place, particularly at Rescue the Republic, where I was with Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. But first, before we get to that, let's have a look at Elon Musk's reaction to California introducing a law that bans the requirements for voter ID. Wow, it's now illegal to require voter ID in California. They just made preventing voter fraud against the law. The Joker is in charge. And this is based on an Alex J. Torville post. California enacts law banning voter ID requirements. Newsom signed a bill into law that bars local government from enacting laws to require residents to show a valid form of ID in order to vote. Based on what I know about the way that government operates and the motivations of the powerful, I find it difficult to believe that the undergirding principle would be compassion rather than expedience. In fact, the way that I used to always be able to I used to say, I don't know why do you have to do that? Why do you have to fill in that form? I worked out, some years ago, it will be money. I don't know how yet, but someone is making money from me having to do this. Now I have learned a new thing. With centralized authoritarians that mask their desire for power behind talk of protecting the vulnerable, the aim is always control. The aim is always control. Then you just have to work out how do they get control by doing what they're doing. So I suppose in this instance, the electoral fraud argument is the one to contemplate, because if voters do not require ID, it is probably easier to manage elections because you now have a little more fluidity around who can vote, obviously. So let's have a look at the FBI Director, Christopher Wray, talking about protecting elections. And note the use of the word protecting, because protection is always what these agencies are offering us. But how infrequently do they deliver protection?
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Wray, the FBI Director. America's elections are the foundation of our democracy, so protecting them is a priority, both for the FBI and our partners. For years, foreign adversaries have attempted to undermine confidence in our processes and institutions through sophisticated malign influence operations and to meddle in our elections with targeted cyber operations. When it comes to protecting elections against these threats, Partnerships and preparation are key. And that's why each of our field offices has election crimes coordinators, special agents, and intelligence analysts who stand ready to field threats if they arise and help coordinate a response. Protecting elections is a team sport, so our election crimes coordinators work closely with our intelligence partners, state and local election officials, and local law enforcement who often play a lead role in responding to threats. At the FBI, we're also helping build resilience by sharing threat information, trends, and best practices based on our nationwide perspective. As part of our efforts to raise public awareness, we launched the Protected Voices Initiative, working with our partners at the Department of Homeland Security and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence to give individuals and campaigns tools to help protect their voices throughout the election process.
We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. We can't continue to bring you this awakening and hopefully enjoyable content without the support of our partners. That's why I've got to ask you, and I'm glad to ask you, are you struggling with back taxes or unfiled returns? The IRS is escalating collections, adding, get this, 20,000 new agents and sending over 5 million collection letters to kick off 2024 to spend on things that you probably don't agree with, like wars and measures and a total lack of infrastructure. In these challenging times, your best defense is Tax Network USA. Don't let the IRS take advantage of you. With over 14 years of experience, Tax Network USA have saved their clients over $1 billion in back taxes. No matter the size of your tax issue, their expertise is your advantage. They specialize in negotiating with the IRS, aiming to significantly reduce your debt. Tax Network USA doesn't just negotiate, they also protect your assets from IRS seizures and manage your yearly returns for ongoing compliance. Importantly, they are licensed to help you with all state tax issues, regardless of where you live in the United States. The clock is ticking. Don't wait as the IRS steps up its game. Seize control of your financial future now. Contact Tax Network USA for immediate relief and expert guidance. Visit taxnetworkusa.com/brand. Don't let tax issues overpower you. Turn to Tax Network USA and find your path to financial peace of mind. Right, let's get back to this content.
We created a series of Protected Voices resources to showcase methods our adversaries might use, to share tips for campaigns and individuals on how to keep sensitive data and systems safe, and to provide guidance for sharing information and reporting concerns.
Look at all of the sigils of power adorning the set where our man stands. And note that in 2016, when the Russiagate claims were made, the FBI had no actual evidence other than the Clinton campaign-funded Steele dossier, since proven to be false. Note in 2020, the FBI pre-bunked the Hunter Biden laptop story alongside other deep state agencies, and that's before we get to the events of January 6 and the way it's reported on. So let me know in the comments and chat, do you trust the FBI when it comes to elections? Should, in the event of a victory for Trump, Tulsi and Bobby, ought there be a reckoning for the FBI and the CIA, in addition to the agencies that interface with the military-industrial complex? Is your government in requirement of nothing less than a full inventory process where it's acknowledged explicitly that something has gone wrong with the deep state? Something has happened to bureaucracy that has tethered and glommed it to globalism as opposed to the electorate. Isn't that what's being masked by traditional bipartisan politics? Isn't that what we mean when we talk of a uniparty? Whoever you vote for, you get the government. Whoever you vote for, globalism advances. Bill Gates grins regardless of the outcome, having spent hundreds of millions in donations to media outlets. George Soros is fine with any result. Isn't that the kind of analysis that will allow us to come together, not just the people of your country, but the people of my country and the people of the world, not in some centralized new order, but absolutely decentralized, maximum diversity, maximum democracy in each community, maximum sovereignty for the individual as long as individual sovereignty is understood in the correct terms, that all of us bow before universal principles that are very difficult to determine if you don't believe in a God that himself represents humility, service, kindness, love. By their fruit shall you know them. That applies to me as an individual, and it applies to the authoritarian state. How do you end up with $750 handouts to the victims of Hurricane Helena while $2.4 billion is afforded in expenditure for war? Well, because you can see what master is being served. Mammon, war, fire. The four horsemen maraud while true values are neglected and forgotten. It would appear that electoral fraud, whether it's actual or fancied, would only be of value if it was to further enforce the disempowerment of the electorate, that's you, and the great empowerment of the institutions and instruments of war, so that whoever's voted in, they can continue with their campaigns. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat? Nice, well done. Thank you very much. And if you're watching us on YouTube, remember, turn on the notification bell, because the algorithm will direct you towards news sources that tell you that war is a good thing. Surely they will, because they benefit from it. Our new The Oracle series, our first ever group interviews designed to bring the greatest and most authoritative voices in particular subjects together for the very first time. Robert Malone, Dr. Pierre Corey, and Steve Kirsch.
What we've experienced is a globally deployed psychological bioterrorism playbook. It's well developed.
And then I started to see just global propaganda directed at essentially distorting, dismissing, and suppressing the evidence of efficacy. And I saw it as a crime.
And at that point, I knew that this was not just a coincidence. There were too many black swans over too short a period. I've never heard anything like this story in my life.
They seem to get the human psyche so well when it comes to brainwashing us and propagandizing us to the direction that they want us to go in, that you would think that they would know that pulling all of these various tactics would actually just push support towards Trump, not away from him.
Ryan Ruth, some of his posts even show that he appeared to have been working with, in his own words, the U.S. Embassy in Kiev. He's doing effectively military intelligence, human trafficking of terrorists.
It's in this context that I think Ruth was kind of radicalized. He decided that while he wanted to assassinate Putin, the easier thing would be to assassinate Donald Trump.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.